All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us wherever you are watching from. As you well know, every week we try to make it a point to give you the goings on in entertainment or pop culture, if you will, in our show that we have on a weekly basis every Sunday, known as This Week in Pop Culture. And of course, I'm not going to be alone in talking about these said topics. So without further ado, I want to welcome my co-host, my partner in crime, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going? So happy to see you. How's it going? We got a great week. I'm doing better than Mike Tyson today, so we
Oh
can't
man,
complain.
let's
We
not
can't
do that. Let's
complain.
not go
We
there.
can't
Let's not
complain.
go there, man. But with that out of the way, we do have a couple of said topics to get into. So without further ado, Spillman, shall we get to it?
Oh yeah, let's get.
All right, bet. So the first story that I want to dive into deals with some sports stories, the world of sports, and we're going to be talking about some things that happen around the NBA. We'll start first, of course, with the NBA Cup. Now, if you guys aren't aware, the NBA Cup started this past Tuesday, the sophomore edition of this in-season tournament known as the NBA Cup. If you're not familiar with it, excuse me, let me briefly bring you up to speed. Here are the rules, succinctly, more or less. The NBA Cup consists of two stages: group play and the knockout rounds. All 30 teams that we have in the league are participating, and they're randomly drawn into three groups of five within their respective conference based on win-loss records from the 2023-2024 regular season. As I mentioned before, it happened this past Tuesday and will continue through Tuesday, December 3rd, which with each team playing four designated group play games on cup nights, those cup nights being Tuesdays and Fridays. One game against each opponent in their said group, with two games at home and two on the road. From this initial group play stage, eight teams will advance to the knockout rounds. So if you're doing your math, the team with the best standing in group play games in each of the six groups, which you see in the picture here, will advance to the knockout rounds. However, in addition to these six teams, two wild cards will advance as well. These wild cards being the team from each conference with the best record in group play games that finish second in its group. So, on to the knockout rounds. These rounds will consist of single elimination games in the quarterfinals played in NBA team markets on December 10th and December 11th, respectively. And the semifinals and the championship will be played in Vegas. That's right, Las Vegas on December 14th and December 17th, respectively. The knockout teams will compete for a prize pool and the NBA Cup championship trophy. So, Spillman, I have to ask you two things. One, are you happy to see the return of this tournament? And two, who do you got?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am very happy to have this tournament returning. I think it's good for the NBA because they get buried in the rigmarole of football season. So having something like the NBA Cup does put eyeballs on the games, and it also makes the players play a little bit hard. If you didn't notice,
Oh, man.
reigning champion NBA Cup champion, the Lakers, led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis, had a 40 point game, and then LeBron had his fourth triple double in a row. So we're happy to see that. I'm interested because this year a certain team is leading the Western Conference in group play matches at 2-0. So I
Oh,
wonder
yeah,
if
yeah, I'm sure
this
you're.
year, if someone's franchise is, in the running for actually the championship, will it then be a legitimate thing that people on the, people that are listeners and fans may root for? Maybe that'll make it a little bit more legitimate if, a certain Northern California team wins. So I wonder about that. But I don't know. I'm just a guy asking questions, ladies and gentlemen. I don't really know what he's going to say because last year I do remember he was like, "Oh, that's Mickey Mouse stuff. It's not real." But now his team's kind of doing good in it, and I don't know. And they got cool courts, ladies and gentlemen. Have you seen some of the courts? How do you feel about the courts, Brendan?
Okay, so you touched on some things that I have some. Let's just say that I'm a little cynical about when it comes to this in-season tournament, and there's some things that I do like. So I tell you what, I'll dive into the things that I like first, and then I'll dive into those things that I'm a little cynical about when it comes to this
Okay.
tournament. Some of them you
Okay.
touched on already, so I'll dive a little deeper into those. So first, excited about. I am excited, as you said, about the unique court designs, the color schemes that they have with the courts. I wish they would just have this for the regular season versus versus just leaving it for the this in season tournament. But I digress. That is one of the awesome parts of this tournament is how they customize the courts. Also, as you said, I love that it makes the season matter where a lot of players, take the season seriously and they play with a sense of urgency that you normally only see with certain teams when it happens in the postseason, especially if a team knows that they have what the tools necessary to be able to succeed in the postseason. Sometimes they kind of drag their feet in the regular
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
So that actually bleeds into the cynic in me. So the cynic in me looks at the state of the game. I feel like I've been watching NBA, watching basketball for 20 plus years. It's crazy to think that 20 plus years, same as you, if not more. And we can both agree the state of the game is in a weird place versus where it was 20 years ago. When we're talking about the NBA 20 years ago versus now, we can both agree that we had players that were willing to play through injuries. And don't get me wrong, like injuries are serious. It's not nothing, it's not something that you should not take seriously. You want your players to be healthy, but at the same time, in this era of the NBA, despite the fact that many of our players are uber talented, arguably more so than they were 20 years ago, when it comes to those injuries and trying to prevent those injuries, we have a lot of divas out there where like, something like a sprained toe prevents you from playing, or the prospect of getting injured prevents you from playing, where we now even have an actual term for it, which is load management. And players these days are getting paid an absurd amount of money to be able to play the game that they love. And don't get me wrong, also, I'm not oblivious to the fact that $20 million, just to give you an example, $20 million 20 years ago is not $20 million now. It's all relative, cost of living, all of that stuff. But still, the amount of money, the contracts that a lot of these players are signing in terms of like longevity, the number of years to be able to earn that same amount of money is absurd. And to have some of these players load manage is, I feel, cheating the game, because it's not allowing fans to be able to enjoy watching the players that they are fans of and that they love to watch play. And if you're at paying these players these absurd amounts of money, it trickles down to everything else, right? It trickles down to what you're paying when you're at the arena. It trickles down to that amount of money that you're paying for your food. It trickles down to the amount of money that you're paying for your tickets. And then to get to the game and find out that that player is not even playing, like it's absurd to me. So the cynic in me is a little irritated that we have to have this in-season tournament for players, I feel, to care about the regular season and actually discourage them from load managing over the course of the regular season versus taking it just as seriously as you would the postseason. But I don't know how you feel about that.
I don't know. I feel like historically, even in that time, this time of year was just kind of bunk basketball games. They were playing. It was good that they were playing, but like, there was a lot of mailing it in and stuff, and people weren't. You know, Christmas is traditionally where people start paying attention to the NBA. So like, I feel like the players know that, and like if you just hear like it's a marathon also. So because the NBA is a marathon season, it goes from October to April, and for some people June. That's a long season. It's not like the football season. It's similar to hockey, and those are long, but those are long seasons. So I think it's good to rev up teams to also, produce the odds that the NBA needs because right now the NBA is fighting to be the second best most watched sport in the US. It's not right now. It's behind college football. So it's like football one and football two are better than basketball right now. So they got to do something. I understand what you're saying with the cynic in you, but if I was getting paid millions of dollars and like the difference between me continuing to make millions of dollars and like having a quote unquote legacy, I would pick the millions of dollars over the legacy any day because you cannot spend legacy at the bank. You cannot take your legacy to the bank and be like, hey, you know, I'm top 75 NBA all time. I got $3 million in there. That's not how it works. You gotta have the actual money in the bank to say I got the money in the bank. So I get what you're saying, but if it's a turf toe and legacies are not made in December or October or November, that's not when people's legacies are made. I talked to a lot of Wizards fans who talk about games that took place in November or December or October, and they'd be like, "Man, my guy put up 60 points on you," and then you'd be like, "Sure, he probably did put 60 points up, but I never seen him do that in the playoffs when it counted, so I don't care." But that's another conversation for another day. But I do want to see. So, what are your words, just to not begrown this? How do you feel about that 2-0 Warrior squad going into this? Do you want to see them win the NBA Cup
I
championship?
do. I do want to see them win. It would be nice to see them win, but also at the end of the day, big picture wise, I would rather have them win the title. It
Okay.
is no different than your Lakers being super pressed about winning the in season tournament last year,
The
and then
inaugural one. So you always say they might name this in the LeBron James Cup. That's what they may name it. I think that's why he did that. He's like, I know what I'm doing here. I'm
I'll,
smart.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That's a
That's a
smart business
legacy
decision. I
thing.
get that.
You can say
It's a
Michael
legacy.
wasn't never doesn't
That's
have
smart.
no cup named after him.
That's smart. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. That's fair. That's a
Yeah.
good point. But still, like at the end of the day, big picture wise, which I know kind of goes against what my whole argument is, but still, like unless it has like some implications with how what happens in the postseason. The only thing that it honestly affects is the next season. Like as we saw with how your place is based on your win loss record from the season before. So I mean, there's something to be said about that. But outside of that, I'm saying right now, what have you done for me lately in this season? I don't know, man. Like it just seems like it's just there to have the players care, kind of in the same way where how people feel about the All-Star game, but I feel like we could spend a whole other show about the All-Star game and that All-Star weekend and how it's gone down. So,
For sure.
but we did have a couple of other stories that made the rounds. So switching gears out of the NBA Cup, and I wanted to talk about a couple of fun and intriguing stories. We'll start first with I know we talked about the Warriors, so we'll talk about the Warriors to start, if you don't mind, Spills, because we're going to talk about the Lakers too. Don't worry.
Oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
in talking about the Warriors this past week, we had Klay Thompson make a homecoming of sorts this past Tuesday when he returned to play against his former team for the first time since being traded to the Dallas Mavericks. As you can see here in the picture, Klay Thompson with his former teammate and superstar Steph Curry this past Tuesday played against one another. Thompson, who previously helped the Golden State Warriors win 4 NBA titles, was welcomed with a special tribute. The feeling would eventually be bittersweet as the Mavericks lost to the Golden State Warriors 120 to 117 in a group play game of the NBA Cup. Again, this game was on Tuesday, so it was a group play game for the NBA Cup. Spillman, what are your thoughts regarding the team's special tribute to his return and the final results of the game?
Well, I was really interested by this game. It's always good to see people once they get traded in the offseason, especially the way or signed somewhere else in the offseason, especially the way that it was a little bit of bad blood with how Clay didn't re-sign with the Warriors. I'm still a little bit, I know that it's a business, but I felt like Clay should have done everything he could have to stay with y'all franchise. I feel like It would have been very special for his legacy to be like, no, this is my squad. This has always been my squad. But maybe he wins a chip with the Mavericks. I don't see that happening, but maybe we do. But definitely, the crazy thing is the star of Clay coming back to the Warriors wasn't even Clay. It was Stephen Curry. Of all the
Yeah,
guys that was out there, Steph was just amazing. I'm gonna leave a little bit of it to you, but I heard that they were going to do a little bit more for a celebration, and not everybody agreed to be on that side. I saw a clip on Draymond's podcast where they were saying they wanted Steph to talk, but Steph ain't want to talk. So I feel like there's bad blood there. What do you think about it? How did you feel like Steph and Clay played in the game?
they both played terrific. Obviously, I feel like Curry overshadowed uh, um, Thompson's game in this reunion that they had. There are a couple of ways that I do feel about it. There was so much hype surrounding Thompson coming back, and I feel like the momentum was in Thompson's court because you always like, and this is the film fan in me. You always like those types of storylines where a player leaves and they, get their revenge of playing their against their former team. And as much as I like the Warriors, I was rooting for Thompson to be able to get that win against his former team, just based on I know how the schism of what happened between him and the Warriors in terms of him getting his contract that he wanted and not being played in the role that he wanted to be played in when he was in the lineup for the team that last year before being traded. So I was rooting for him, but I feel like not enough attention is being played to the storyline. And this goes back to kind of that competitive streak or that that competitiveness that you have as an athlete. You don't want you want to be able to spoil that storyline that someone else might have, or
For
optics that
sure.
someone else might have against you in a given game. And there was so much momentum sounded around, oh, Klay Thompson's going to get his revenge. Klay Thompson's going to get his revenge. And so I'm sure in the back of Steph's mind, he was like, nah, bro. Like,
Nah,
I'm going to
bro,
show
not in
you.
my
Nah.
house.
He's like, nah, bro. I'm going to show you. You my old teammate. I love you like a brother, but at the same time, I want to show you what you were
This is my
missing by not
house.
being on our team. This is
Yeah.
my. I don't want you to forget. This is still my team, and we're still going to keep it going. We're going to still keep the momentum that we've had this season, even without you. So, no hard feelings, but at the same time, I'm not going to allow you to steal my thunder of demonstrating that we can still succeed with or without you. Even though you were a core part of what we were able to accomplish in the 4 championships that we won, I'm still going to show everyone, I'm going to show the world that the Warriors are still the Warriors without you. So
Yeah.
I do feel there was an element of that in this game. As I said, I was rooting for Clay to be able to kind of get his revenge, but I mean, I still got to win. I still got the Warriors winning the
How
game,
dare
so I
you?
can't
I
complain.
don't I don't root for people against my team. You're a loyalist, and you know I feel like Clay forgets that he's Ringo of the Warrior Beatles.
Not
He's definitely
Ringo.
Ringo. He's not
Not
George. He's
Ringo.
not George. He's Ringo. He's Ringo. He is Ringo. I'm sorry to say it. He's
Okay.
Ringo.
All right. He's
It's
Ringo.
like of the guys in that Warriors run that was replaceable, he was the most replaceable. They y'all replaced him with Buddy Hield. It don't seem like y'all miss him.
They haven't missed a beat and they're saving money.
The
So
years that Draymond's been hurt or suspended for some kind of reason, or Steph's been hurt for some kind of reason, y'all don't be good. But when he be gone, y'all still be good. So to me, that's Ringo. We get another drummer in here, baby. Sometimes we gotta put somebody. That's what Quincy Jones said about Ringo. We had to put somebody else in here because you were so bad. But I don't want to poo poo the man. He's a great shooter, all time, great shooter. But
all
I feel
time.
like
And I'll
great shooter.
also say this. I've said this before, but I'll say it again. There is something to be said about a new environment. And he'd been playing enough times with the Warriors. He'd accomplished, a great deal with the Warriors already. And if you're disgruntled with a current with the current position that you have in the current job that you have, it's okay to move someplace else if you feel like it's no longer a good fit for you anymore. And it didn't seem like it was. It wasn't helping the Warriors because you had that element in the locker room of having
Hmm.
someone that was disgruntled and is not, with coalescing with the team. Not to say that he wasn't coalescing, but at the same time, it can kind of bring the rest of the team down if you're a little disgruntled. So there is something to be said about also having a new environment and being able to kind of refresh in terms of what you're doing with your new employer. So I do feel like at the end of the day, it was helpful for Clay. He was able to keep the type of role that he wanted to have in a given franchise, which is what is it appears he's going to have with the Dallas Mavericks. And it's not like he was sent to a bum team. The Dallas Mavericks were right there last season, and they still have a lot of those pieces on their team. They still have Kyrie there. Kyrie is still playing at a high level, and you still have Luka there, who hasn't even reached, I feel, his prime yet. He's still in the
I don't
early.
think so.
He's still in the
I don't think
early
so.
part of his career. He's only a couple of years in and still like killing. So I don't know. So I still feel like even at the end of the day, even with the loss, I feel like it was the right decision for him to have.
Oh yes, most definitely. I think so. I mean, you got to go again. You cannot spend legacy in the bank. There's no bank legacy. You don't get that. So you got to get your money when you can. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right. So another story that I wanted to dive into deals with your Lakers spill. So let me throw this up here. Think you'll enjoy it. So we had a visiting game with RJ Barrett.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
During the game against the Los Angeles Lakers that are that Barrett played in, he recognized a certain Game of Thrones alum. If you guys don't recognize that said actor, it is none other than Nikolai Coster Waldau, who many fans will recognize as Jamie Lannister. Spillman. Let me see actually if I can bring up the video because the video is
The
actually
video's great. The
the
video
video.
is so
He's like,
good.
wait, Game of Thrones?
We're like,
Like
hold on, hold
he
on.
gets an M1 in the middle of the play, and then he's like, wait, hold up a second.
Hold on, ladies and gentlemen.
Hold up, pause a second. And he's like, Game of Thrones. So let me see if I can bring this up for you guys. It's actually pretty hilarious, and I'm gonna put it up as a full screen for you guys. Hold on, see if I can get this going here. Cool. There we go. Okay, and this is a shout out to Bleacher Report for the video that they were able to capture here. So he goes for the play, gets an M1. He does a double take. He's like, wait a second, Game of Thrones? If you notice, see if you recognize Nikolai there. It's like, wait a second, oh crap, Game of Thrones. So Spillman, I have to ask you, if you were playing, let's say just hypothetically, back in the days when we were actively playing, if you were in the game, would you be starstruck? Who would you be starstruck by? And also, what do you think of this interaction?
I think somebody like I feel like it would be somebody from a show that I watched, but like was not a known big basketball fan. I feel like because like Spike Lee, you're going to expect to see Spike Lee in New York, and he played in New York, so you probably saw a lot of New York fancy celebrities and stuff.
Yeah,
But okay, so let's transport ourselves. Let's say okay, so at the time that I was like what 25, 26, because he's
yeah,
about 25, 26. So let's say at that point in my
yeah,
life, if like let's say Lawrence Fishburne was there, and I'd be like, oh, it's
yeah,
Morpheus. So
yeah,
maybe something like that.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
so,
I
like
give you
something where I wouldn't expect him to be a basketball fan. And I'm like, what are you doing? He had to see right there. So that would be cool.
right.
Yeah. What about you? What do you have any people that you go wow for?
No, I hear you. So I guess for me, and that was a good point that you brought up, is there aren't many folks because of the nature of doing this show and doing different events and stuff. I don't really get starstruck. It is a situation where it's like, oh yeah, cool, it's nice to meet you, but I will say there may be a handful of people in there where, because I'm a fan of their work, whether it's in front of the screen as a performer, as an actor, or behind the screen of what they've accomplished as a filmmaker or a writer, that I might get starstruck. And there's a very finite, like, handful list. So Lawrence Fishburne definitely be up there. I don't care what you say. Like, it would be Jack Nicholson too.
Oh,
We
for
know that
sure,
we,
for
we know
sure.
that we know that he is a big time NBA fan, but it'd still be cool to know that Jack Nicholson was watching me play. Let me see. Another one would be Steven Spielberg. That would be pretty cool. John Carpenter, because I love horror movies, and he's the director of my favorite film. Period. So yeah, as I said, there are a handful of them up there that if they happen to be in the stands watching the game, it would be pretty cool. But and then if we're talking Game of Thrones, right? I guess with Game of Thrones, it wouldn't necessarily be Nikolai. It would be I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name, man, but um I would say Amelia Clark. I think she's come to a couple of basketball games, but of course, I'm a fan of Mother of All Dragons, Khaleesi. Like
I
that,
was
that would
gonna
be
wait. I
cool.
was gonna wait to see if either of us went that way with it, because there
Yeah,
are
that
definitely
would be
some
pretty
people.
cool. That'd be pretty cool.
Oh
So
yeah.
to have her at your game. So yeah, here's the thing too. Contextually, another reason why I probably wouldn't get starstruck is you have to understand the optics, right? Or you have to understand the context. As I said, it was in Los Angeles. LA is a place where you have actors and folks that are in Hollywood, where they reside, where they live. There's going to be a higher likelihood that you're going to see actors and folks who work in the industry coming to your game more so than any other city. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're going to have them come to other games, and that may be because maybe they're visiting their hometown, or maybe they just happen to be in town for something that they're doing. But more oftentimes than not, percentage wise, you're more than likely going to find a whole gang of folks that are in the entertainment industry at a Los Angeles Laker game. This kind of the
I mean,
pastime.
that's kind
That's
of
just
why you
kind of
get
the
signed to
pastime
the
of
Lakers.
of
Yeah.
being in LA, is that you want to run into a lot of people who are in entertainment. So there's that too. But yeah. How about you guys? For you, those of you out there, if there are certain folks, if you were playing in a given store, it doesn't have to be basketball. Maybe it's football. Maybe it's some other sport, soccer. That if you realize that there was someone that you were a fan of, who would that person be? That celebrity be? It may not even be a movie or television star that you guys recognize, that is there at the game watching you
Yeah.
guys
Like, what
play.
if Neil deGrasse Tyson popped up on you? I'd be like, man, is this the right angle to rain it down from space?
Right. And then also, I
That's
want to give
awesome.
a shout out to Ray. What's up, Ray? Good morning. But going into the last of these intriguing stories, if you will, we're going to talk Victor Wembanyama. Let me put this gentleman up here. This second year NBA player of the San Antonio Spurs had a historic night this past week. If you can see, we have a big 50 there. And why do I have the 50, you might ask? Mr. Victor Wembanyama scored 50 points in a win on Wednesday night against the Washington Wizards. I know contextually we're like, okay, Washington Wizards, is that really that impressive? But I will dig deeper. I know I'm gonna take a little shade off of playing
No,
against the
no, no.
Wizards,
Leave it there. They deserve it. They
but
deserve it.
hold on. We're gonna get there. So this 50-point performance from the second year, 20-year-old San Antonio Spurs star had historic implications. The performance makes Victor Wembanyama the fourth youngest player to score 50 points, trailing only behind Brandon Jennings, LeBron James, and Devin Booker. Furthermore, this performance made Wembenyama the 8th player in franchise history to score 50 points. David Robinson holds the franchise record with 71 points against the Los Angeles Clippers more than 30 years ago on April 24th, 1994. So he is the 8th in franchise history, that being with the San Antonio Spurs, to score 50 points. So Spillman, what are your thoughts on this historic performance in the Stars' sophomore campaign?
Oh, I am really, really impressed by this. I feel like we saw the video last week of Steven Adams, arguably the strongest man in the NBA, just pushing him around, and people were saying, "Oh, he needs to gain weight. He needs to get
Right,
bigger." No, he
right.
doesn't. He just doesn't need to play Steven Adams. He does that to everybody. That's not, he's going to get pushed around by the big guy. That just is how it happens. But and a very impressive 50. People get their high scores on the Wizards all the time. That's why neither of us root for that franchise, because it's just kind of a group of people that happens to. Um, Really good to see for the San Antonio Spurs. I think that they're really building with the addition of Chris Paul to him to facilitate some of the scoring, but he's
Sure,
crazy. The
sure.
also it's a very different 50 from a big man, because he shot a lot of threes in this game. I
Yeah,
think he shoots like 8 a game, which is crazy when you think about it. If you come from a more traditional a point of view for basketball, but
yeah, yeah.
I'm just very excited to see this.
All right, cool. So I'll say this: when we're talking about Victor Wembanyama, we all know that Victor Wembanyama is a talented player and has a high upside and is a generational talent, right? I guess my thing that I'm worried about, and maybe worried is too strong a word, is that the Spurs don't waste the talent that they have at their disposal, that they don't waste the best years of Victor Wembanyama's career. And it's not to say that he won't have future years where he's going to have iconic performances like this, right? I feel like he still has, even in, as I said, it's just his second year in the league. He's going to have far more performances like this. I just want it to matter in the context of his team having aspirations and being contenders for an NBA title. When we're talking about the trajectory of the Spurs, there are two things that come to mind immediately, and that the first one is who they're drafting, and when we're talking about the personnel of the Spurs, while they did make some moves in terms of the draft, I think we can both agree, Spillman, that those pieces are not going to immediately help them to win a title in the next couple of years. Yeah, they made some moves, but those players are not ready to make an immediate impact this year to help them get to a title. And I don't feel like it's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years, honestly, based on who they drafted. So there's that part. Also, when we're talking about the personnel, the pieces that they have that are already existing in the league, we have Chris Paul, who you just mentioned. While Chris Paul will go down as one of the greatest point guards in the history of the NBA, and I stick by that. At this point in his career, he isn't going to be a viable second option as a scorer. He's not going to be that secondary star that you need on a team like this. While he's going to be a good mentor to a lot of the players that are on the teams, whether they are guards or even to Victor Wembanyama himself, he's still going to be a liability defensively. If we're talking about where he stands right now in his career,
Hmm.
and yeah, I just hope that the Spurs continue to be that they're uh, still that they still continue to be aggressive in the personnel that they try to surround Wemby with, because
Yeah.
I don't want there to be additional instances like this where kind of like what we have with this the fact that he played the not the Warriors but the Wizards, where yeah, it's 50 points, but it was 50 points against the Wizards. Yeah, it's 50 points, but like they're 10th in the Western Conference. yeah, it's 50 points, but this is the last season of the game, and they're not playing the postseason. Like, I don't want there to be storylines like that. Like, I want it to be 50 points where it matters, where it's like, oh, he scored 50 points in the first round, or oh, he scored 50 points in the conference finals, or oh, he scored 50 points in the finals. And part of that is, I feel like on Wemby too, I feel like he suffers from what, and you may agree with me of this or not, Spillman, but he suffers from what LeBron went through early in his career, where he wants to be liked and nice and not be aggressive and wanting to win. And
Yeah, I
don't
can
get
see
me
that.
wrong, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong about being a good teammate, but at the same time, you have to be willing to hold, your teammates accountable, and you have to be willing to hold your organization accountable to surround you with pieces so that way you guys can compete for titles.
Yeah, for sure. But
So I mean, that's where I stand on that.
I agree with that. But again, this is what I was just talking about with team people who score a bunch of points early in the year. That's why we got the cup. Because at least in the cup, it would be against someone. So like if you get an early 50 like this where you've made that leap and now you're using moves that people really don't have tape on you on, if they could put something like that in the NBA Cup to come full circle in this conversation, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. For sure. So that's going to wrap it up for what we have been talking about in the world of sports. Of course, we talked about the NBA Cup. We talked about the Warriors and that reunion with Klay Thompson for that NBA Cup game. RJ Barrett with recognizing of a Go Game of Thrones alum in the game, and of course Wemby, the youngest center to score 50 points, fourth youngest all time. Pretty insane. 20 years old, scoring 50 points. But we're going to switch gears into the world of film and TV. So there are a couple of things that I wanted to talk about just to kind of give you guys a quick preview. We want to talk Tomb Raider with Sophie Turner being cast as Lara Croft in the Tomb Raider series that's being done, and also with the recent news of Conan O'Brien being announced as the host of the 97th Oscars. So we'll start first, as I said, with Sophie Turner being cast as Lara Croft in the upcoming Tomb Raider series that will be on Amazon. Now, this is an exclusive from Deadline this past Thursday. It was revealed that Turner is in negotiations to play the iconic game character Lara Croft in Amazon's high profile series adaptation of the video game franchise Tomb Raider. And the series is going to be created by Emmy winning Fleabag creator Phoebe Waller Bridge. If you know your history with the adaptation of this game in other mediums, of course, it was previously played. Lara Croft, that is, was previously played on the big screen by Angelina Jolie and Alicia Vikander, respectively, in two separate iterations of the character. This series has been apparently been a passion project for writer, executive producer Waller Bridge, who I mentioned before. And not too long ago, she spoke fondly of the title character at the time of the series being picked up by Amazon back in May, saying that Lara Croft means a lot to her, as she does to many, and she can't wait to go on this adventure, bats and all. So, Spillman, what are your thoughts on how about that? Another Game of Thrones alum, right? Game of
Oh
Thrones
yeah.
alum and
This is
X Men
Game of
franchise
Thrones.
alum. People sleep on
Yeah.
that too. She was an X Men franchise alum. So Sophie Turner uh, taking on the role of Lara Croft in Amazon's Tomb Raider TV series.
I'm really interested in her in this new series. I've always loved Tomb Raider. It's always been an interesting franchise. I like how they've leaned more into the fantasy aspect of it. I think that
Mhm.
that's great for the franchise. And I like Sophie Turner in a lot of stuff. I think she's got really good acting chops. She can do action as well. She's, Game of Thrones. She's known for her, like, not as much action as she was a younger person then. But I'm really excited to see her explore that more. I like that we are using media that, are things that are positive messages to people. And who don't like Lady Indiana Jones? Like, it's very cool, the Laura Croft stuff. I think I will be interested to see if this is more like a TV version of that Uncharted movie that Tom Holland was in. I imagine they're going to do a lot of some of the same stuff from that because
Sure, sure.
that's definitely it. I'd like to see if they use some of the gameplay for some of the newer games because some of the newer games are very cinematic. But have you played any of the new Tomb Raiders?
No, I'm old school when it comes to Tomb Raider. You know, the very box pixelated graphics that we used to have.
Be careful.
Folks know what I mean. If we're talking about uh uh characters aside, if we're
Yes.
talking about just the surroundings, we were still in the early stages of the kind of the 3D type of graphics that we were getting with game consoles. PlayStation they were among those first systems that started to transition into that. Outside of that, what is it, 32-bit era that we had with cartridges that you had to, make sure weren't dusty, that you had to make sure weren't malfunctioning in the system, and the characters were just moving straight across the screen versus you having a entire environment that you were able to explore. That was something
Hmm.
that was pretty revolutionary. So I guess with this casting news, yes, I agree. Sophie Turner is a very capable actress. My only thing is this is a very physical role, and is not to say that Turner is not capable of doing physical roles. It's just I've yet to see her do that. So
Yeah, that's what I'm
I'm just
interested in seeing as well.
that's the part that I'm really interested in seeing, the physical aspects of the character. I have no doubt that she is able to do the dramatic bits that are necessary, or components that are necessary to do the role. My concern would be do I buy her as a action star? Because you
Right.
have to be very physical to be able to bring Lara Croft to life. She's a swashbuckling adventurer like Indiana Jones, and
Right.
she's leaping off of things and jumping onto things, and so it's a very physical role. It's going to be very demanding in order to be able to realistically illustrate that. So that would be my only hesitation with this casting, is that we have yet to see her do that. So I'm assuming maybe she had some screen tests where she was able to demonstrate that, or maybe she's just going through a very physically demanding training regimen to bring that character to life.
Yeah, I think so too. But also, they did invent stunt doubles for a reason, so they'll probably just, if she needs the help, they got some. They're calling the ringer, so I think it will be fine. I'm very interested to see what they do with this. I think she was great in the X-Men movies. It never felt like she wasn't, but, like, obviously she played Jean Grey, who's not known as the most, like, she's not known as a karate person or something like that.
Right.
She doesn't do kung fu, but
What
it
she had
was
to do was
believable.
all she had to do was she only had to be lifted into the air. But outside of that, there's no like hand to hand combat that she's doing.
Doing stuff like this,
Right.
which looks cool. That's pretty cool. We can work with it. So I don't know. I think she'll be good as Lara Croft. Um, Obviously an iconic character and very much girl boss. I do like that. That's pretty cool.
For sure.
Laura Croft
For
is the
sure.
main character, and I like to see that of a vehicle like that. Always like action films with the female lead or action
And she'll be
shows
able
with
to
a
pull off
female
the
lead.
accent. So like that
Yeah,
that would be cool.
that'll be cool. So it won't look like it's kind of weird because Angelina
Yeah.
Jolie's British accent's not that great. It's kind of like, okay, you're cute, so I'm gonna let it slide. You ain't from no England.
I hear
You
you.
ain't
I
from
hear
no
you.
England. So yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, as I said, interested to see what happens with that role, but we'll see. Amazon has the money to be able to pull off the epicness and the scope. I feel of a lot of the set pieces that would be required of this series. So I'm excited. I'm interested to see, and I'm very interested to see how I can be surprised by what Sophie is capable of as a actress in terms of what she can do physically. As you said, they do have doubles available, but let's be honest, a lot of those stunt doubles are going to be probably for things that she absolutely legally, they will want to protect her from doing. But at the same time,
We need
for
to get some face
for folks
shots, which
for
is like,
folks
yeah.
to be able to buy her as a physical, action star, there's still going to be some things that she's still going to be called on to do that, like, they won't be able to hide the camera from her being able to see that she's doing it or not. And I feel like there is something to be said about that, where the audience is going to buy more into that world and into that character that you're playing if they see that you're actually physically doing it versus having someone else do it, because sometimes that can take you out of it.
For sure. What if we find out that she's like a gung fu expert and they make Laura Croft gung fu expert and she just run around like pow, hitting people with the hammer? I mean, that would be
I mean,
crazy.
that would be
That would be
great.
crazy. Yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool.
So, but with, with that being said, we're going to hop into our very last story. As I mentioned, I had teased it a little, teased it right at the top when we were talking about it. And you can see it here in the background, and that's centered around Conan O'Brien being announced as the host of the upcoming Oscars. So let me, dive into further details about that. So this was announced this past Friday by Academy CEO Bill Kramer and Academy President Janet Yang from that the Emmy award-winning television host, writer, producer, and comedian known as Conan O'Brien, as I said, would host the 97th Oscars, which would mark his first time hosting the broadcast. When asked about securing O'Brien as the host of the star-studded event, Kramer and Yang were quoted as saying the following: "We are thrilled and honored to have the incomparable Conan O'Brien host the Oscars this year. He is the perfect person to help lead our global celebration of film with his brilliant humor, his love of movies, and his live TV expertise. His remarkable ability to connect with audiences will bring viewers together to do what the Oscars do best: honor the spectacular films and filmmakers of this year." Of course, now, if we're talking about Conan O'Brien, we of course know him as hosting the late night talk shows, Late Night with Conan O'Brien, The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien and Conan. But before his more than 2 decade long hosting career, it's hard to believe it's been that long, but when you really think about it, I guess it has been more than decades. He's also served as writer prior to that for Saturday Night Live and The Simpsons. Currently, O'Brien hosts the podcast Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, and he recently starred in the 2024 travel show Conan O'Brien Must Go. Over his career, he has won 5 primetime Emmys and earned 31 nominations for his work. Now, about the Oscars, it will be held on Sunday, March 2nd, 2025, at the Dolby Theater at Ovation Hollywood, and will be televised live on ABC at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 4 p.m. Pacific Time, with the official live red carpet show airing at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time and 3:30 p.m. Pacific Time in more than 200 territories worldwide. Spillman, you hear the thoughts, the announcement, I should say, about Conan being the host. What are your thoughts about him taking on this duty at Hollywood's biggest night?
I am very interested to see Conan do this. I like Conan's humor. Obviously, he was the architect of the beginning of the show, The Simpsons. He was one of the main architects of that show when it was very funny and very whip quick with its wit. I do like Conan's wit. I wonder though if it's too long, if it's long enough ago that we can stop worrying about people getting slapped at the Oscars, because somebody slapping Conan would be crazy. I don't know what would happen with that, but that could possibly
Right.
happen because it happened at one time not too long ago. So I don't know if it's long enough yet where we can't talk about it or make that kind of a joke. But I'm very interested to see what Conan does. He's very funny and very weird, so I think that that will be good to capture the people because they have too many. It's not many people doing it anymore. They've run out of comedians. I feel like they need a new crop. But and this is his first time doing it, correct?
Yes. Yes. At the
Yeah.
Oscars.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that would be very cool. He's definitely a great, TV comedian. So very interested to see. What are your opinions of it? Do you think he's a good fit?
So here's the thing. I do think that he's a good fit for the show. I will say that he's recently commented on his podcast about his hesitation in doing it. So I find it, kind of hilarious that he kind of bit the bullet and decided to do it. And that's just the idea that when we're talking about the industry when it comes to film, and he makes this point, is that a couple of decades ago, right, when we're talking about the Oscars, a lot of the films that you were having those segments on that you were making fun of, people had seen. Like they even though they are films that are being recognized for each of these honors, whether it's for different disciplines behind the camera or in front of the camera with acting, they were films that were recognized and people knew. And I feel
Right.
like in this day and age, there's very much a separation of, I guess you could say, those art house related type of films that only a select few, only a select few see, versus those mainstream ones that are like box office draws, right? I feel like that gap between those films that are recognized for Oscars, that gap is wider between those films that are recognized for that and those that do business. And don't get me wrong, you have kind of those misnomers where there are a couple of films that manage to do both, like they were very successful and they get recognized. But I feel like there are fewer of those now, and there's a wider gap with those types of films where I feel like Hollywood has kind of gotten very has gotten a little bougie, if you will, if I'm using the
Hmm.
term. They've kind of gotten a little bougie where this is a an art house film, and we should take this film seriously, or like this is a film that only a select few of us get to see, and oh, like we're recognizing this film, but it's a film that we're only going to make available in these select theaters, versus it
Hmm.
having an opportunity to. And don't get me wrong, like during the Oscars, they do, there is a habit to expand that release, but I feel like it's not only in to the a result of what has happened in Hollywood, but I feel it's also an example of what has happened with audiences, where audiences, and it may be for due to a number of factors, that there are fewer folks that have seen many of the films that are nominated in today's Oscars and Golden Globes and award shows versus maybe a couple of decades ago. And you could attribute that to a lot of things. Going to the movies is far more expensive now than it was 10, 15 years ago. Growing up, you could go to the movie for what, like $9 or $10, and now it's almost like $20 to go to a movie just with one person, and that's not counting multiplying that by going with a significant other or a family. If you have a family that you're going to the movies with, so it's much more of an expensive endeavor than it used to be. So that maybe that's discouraging the the habits of people going to the movies. But yeah, it's just different, and so it makes doing the show challenging. As you said, he has great comedic timing, but what's the point of doing skips when people don't really know what the skit is about if they have not seen the movie?
Yeah, for sure. For sure, I think that that's very true. But I think that he works well with stuff when it falls apart. That like the fact that we've seen him for 30
Yeah, he's good
years
on his
be on
feet. He's good
TV,
on his
being
feet.
good on his
Yeah.
feet, I think that that will help somewhat with the show because there are some comedians and hosts that they've gotten who aren't really that quick on their feet. So I think that getting him on his feet, being quick, that will be good for what they're trying to do with this.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But what do you guys think? Are you guys excited about Conan? Those of you out there, whether you're here in the chat or if you are, watching it after the fact, you can let us know in the comments. What do you think about the two stories that we had? What do you think about Sophie Turner being cast as Lara Croft in Tomb Raider, and also how do you feel about Conan O'Brien hosting the 97th Oscars? Let us know here in the comments. But that is going to do it for this show of This Week in Pop Culture. Once again, I want to thank you guys for watching every said week,
Yes.
and I'm going to punt it over to Spillman. Can you tell folks where they can find you, sir?
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. You can find me at Truly Spill on Instagram. We've got some things there for you. We can chat about things and we can be friends. Also, don't forget to comment and share the show.
All right, there you guys have it. So again, I want to thank Spillman. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Troy ENT on X and also Brandon Troy underscore ENT on Instagram. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there and see y'all soon.